Thanks a lot, Reverend Michael and Carlton, for the invitation and all the good work I've been able to find in this place since morning. When I was briefly here on Friday, so it's exciting. So, and at the same time, I want to welcome you to this worship service, the second one. I don't know why you didn't come to the first one, and I tell you, you missed a lot. So next time you may either travel yourself to come to both, but I don't know, but you must not miss anymore. Before I tell you who I am, I'm going to request those who are able to stand with me so we can, I'm going to have a word of prayer for this beautiful worship. We're going to go. Is that okay? Why don't you stand? And at the end, I'll only ask you to say amen. I'm sure all of you know Uganda because I'm going to pray in Uganda, my language. So if you don't know, that's one of the miracles. So you'll be able to learn. Because you had the choir was able to sing Swahili very well. So, kama kwebaza kubanga tuzowalenze leero olw'ebuli muntu yenna wano aliwo olw'ekigendererwa. Waliwo abazze okuva mu south n'okuva mu north ne east ne west. Naye tukkiriza nti tuli omuntu omu. My prayer is for love, unity, respect and peace of all men and women all over the world. And we can say amen. Amen. And you may be seated. My name is Reverend Kiyimba, and I'm a Unitarian minister from Uganda. Just in case you don't know where Uganda is in Africa. And that's where I am. So it's always, sometimes when people see me with my color and black, they think maybe I'm from the Caribbean. I'm from Africa. So, but the most important thing is that we come from different walks of life, but we are all the same people. This morning, my testimony is about the importance of our faith. Sometimes you may have what you have and you don't know its importance and the values of it. So it's another moment of truth that we'll be able to share in the next 20 minutes of the treasure of the faith that we confess. Is that okay? Yes. Yeah, I've been able to travel and I see people have what they have and they don't treasure it, which is a big disappointment. You may have parents and you don't know the values to have them. So you may have this faith which is so precious, that is a faith, that the only faith, I think, I'm even wondering, if somebody is not a Unitarian, what can somebody be in the 21st century? I think everybody should be a Unitarian, isn't it? Yeah, we will have a conversation, we'll see. Because I was an evangelical pastor for 6 years. So I know what it means to be somewhere and then you are someone else. But before I go into that, I would love to tell you that I went to school when I was young, and also my mother took me to church. Then it was the Roman Catholic Church. And then when I finished my university also, I had a degree. The first degree I had in electrical engineering, that's my professional. And then I eventually grew up in a village, left the village life, and came to the city to look for university education. So eventually I got involved into the church. This church I went to was the United Apostolic Church of Uganda. It's a predominantly evangelical, call it charismatic, whichever way. That church was nice, but it wasn't the best. It had a lot of some deficits in spite of it being okay. I got there, the music was nice. There was a lot of clapping and dancing. It So things were a little bit different. As a young man, I saw this is where I am. So for about 6 years later, I was there. Started as a pastor in the Church of Education. That's why I was the lay pastor. Later on, they asked me if I would go to the Bible college and so I can come back and be a licensed and ordained. 2.5 years later, I did so. So I came back again to the church with another high diploma in biblical studies. So eventually, that is the time I'm talking about, 1999. So my whole start of the ministry was actually in this dispensation of the 21st century. But as I said, a lot of things happened within my ministry for the 6 years, but not everything was good. That's where I'm going to start. I was raised up by a single mother who is even a widow, and I'm the last one of 10 children. I didn't see my father because he was already killed by Idi Amin, one of the tyrants and dictators who lived in Africa. So, in this church of ours, which had closely given a Sunday more than 300 people, say 75% of them were women. But the women were of less value for what the church had to do. The reason is one, because they were women. They were not allowed to put on pants. They couldn't even come and they sing a song. We had a beautiful daughter who came to tell us about the teens camp. She couldn't do that in our church because she's classified as a woman. So there was a lot of inequality that I didn't like in the church. Having been raised up by a single mother, I was convinced anyway that women are able and more than able to do much more. So, however, also the other issues that came up. You know, when we came into this dispensation, a lot of inventions were going on, the internet and the opening up. So I got to have other issues, and those were people questioning our church and me and the teachings of what we understand by sex and sexuality, especially in respect to homosexuality. I remember telling the young man who called our church, and he was for counseling, I never met him, that actually homosexuality is unnatural, is a sin. If not, somebody is demon possessed. So he should come to the church and I pray for him. I did so because that's what I knew. However, never again. Now I know differently. So in the 3 years, I had come to terms with about 11 people and more. So I was having the records that really this is an issue we need to think about. I reported the women issue to the church elders, and then I'm going back with the issue of same-sex. So they told me, you risk to lose your license and ordination because you know very well what the Bible teaches. That's why sometimes I'm so much against the dogma. But as I tell you, I was already come to terms with the reality of the diversity that we have. And my conviction was now, how am I going to bring into unity in this diversity of all issues? Our church in the city has over 150 people. And since 2006, when we incepted, and we started since its inception then, we have been always on the forefront to see that all men and women, all people from different colors, quality class, come together as the same. We were doing it just on the level of spirituality. We didn't know that actually it required us to go a milestone. Because when I left the evangelical church, because I couldn't have my views be entertained, I started an independent church. So which later we went on to bring it to the level to see that we are Unitarians and the Universalists as well. But as you know, transitions in other countries and other places of the world, sometimes it's not very easy that way. Also, our church faced troubles. Some members were not willing to see women participating just in the same way. And at the same time, when we wanted to bring in a much more humanism, in the sense that, yes, we believe in God, we believe in everything, but at the same time, people have their responsibility as human beings. They need to come to terms to do and to believe and make their own decisions. If it's about the Bible, that's fine, because I was still into the Christian setup. But I wanted the church to own responsibility as individuals. So, by the blessings of this world, we finally agreed that we're going to be a church which is inclusive. And what you may find in our church today are all men and women from all different backgrounds. I suppose any one of you can find a place in our church. Whether you are black, whether you are white, whether you are rich, or whether you are poor. Whether you occupy the whole street, you can find a place in our church. So that's what we are. Isn't that good news? Yes. And then you are quiet. You can say, anyway, I know what to do later on. When my class is quiet, I was a lecturer, I know what to do, and I know what I'm going to do. And then, so we can be able to get together. But nevertheless, leaving all that behind, I've been able to see all those transitions in my life. Being in the village and coming to the city, getting education. I've even had an opportunity and a blessing to be able to travel to some other countries. And some of the countries I've been there many times. In Europe, I've gone there many times. I've been here in America. I've been to several states. Been able to speak to universities, Unitarian churches. I have covered a number of them. I've been able to speak to groups, small and even to one-to-one. My experience has only been this. There is still a lot of inequality, disrespect, discrimination among the people because of segregation. You hear me? Yes. In spite of some of the achievements we have been able to afford, there is still a lot of gap of inequality that is happening among men and women. This is coming from my way back home. As a minister, seeing how people are being discriminated because of segregation. And the highest peak started in 2009 when I saw the evangelical American Christian pastors traveling to my country to instigate and stir up hate among people because of their sexual orientation. I'm convinced beyond no reasonable doubt, and I don't want any more lecture about sexual orientation and the people themselves. So I was so much astonished to see that somebody from another world, which I assumed to be a developing country, is still lacking that knowledge. It was a disappointment, I tell you frankly. And I said, I think it's not possible at all. Ugandans were already discriminated during the imperialism and the colonialism by the British, dividing us on tribal lines. And I said, it's not going to happen anymore. If people want to colonize others, I think they must go and colonize other fellow Americans, maybe in Alabama or somewhere else. Not here, in my country. So I had to go to the forefront with our church, risking our lives for redemption. Because the gay community needed to be redeemed. They needed somebody to go and stand with them and be liberated. The reason is one, most of the gay men and women in my country are poor. And secondly, they are not educated. So they don't know when somebody is going to take away their rights. You understand what I'm saying? Yes. So as a minister, with the blessing which I had, I said I have to go on the forefront. I read our church on 14th February. I remember I invited one of my fellow ministers, Marin, from Tulsa, and I worked with the UN office in New York, and I said, come and help me. Some people who call them wise men, we need to disprove them, they are actually unwise, because they were interpreting the Bible in a different way. So we were able to organize this conference, Standing on the Side of Love, in which we are trying to answer that it is unacceptable to discriminate people because of their sexual orientation. However, as we've been trying to achieve this, we're trying to continue to see these forces that come our way. We still see many of them still go to Uganda, and they are trying to find a way they can influence. But as long as I'm here and we have this conversation, I hope we will be able to help one another and we defeat all these forms of inequality that is happening. It may not be happening to you as an individual, but it's happening to someone else. It may not be happening to your brothers or your sister, but at least it's going to happen to your nephew or to your uncle in one way or another. So it calls us to stand up together in the oneness of humanity, and we'll be able to force our ways to see that we break the gap of inequality. I know that breaking the barriers of inequality all over the world, even here in America, it was not an easy thing. I was in San Francisco and I visited a house, and I was introduced to this movie, a video of the helper. The help, they call it the help. And I saw that. And I said, okay, now I know how the world was. Have you seen that? The help?
I read the book.
You read the book. But all that and more accounts on the daily violation of people's rights, of which we have to go there and help. And I'm wondering, why can't we come together? Why can't we be able to respect it and believe in one another, especially in this dispensation? Some of the men in Africa and here and elsewhere have been able to go over there and speak these words of peace. And I want to quote to you what the former Secretary General Kofi Annan had to say when he was faced with issue of discrimination as the Secretary General. But he wanted to guide the nation and nations as well. This is what he had to say. He said, we may have differences in religion and differences in color, skin, but we all belong to one human race. You hear that? The diorama, also a man who has fought to see peace in Tibet, he had to say these words. Internal peace is an institute. First step in achieving people's peace in the world. How do you cultivate it? It is very simple, by realizing that all mankind is one. Maybe some people have differences, but at least we have an obligation to see that I may be different in the skin, you may be different with the skin, but we all belong to one human race. I was on a radio station in Baltimore on Monday, and then one of the callers called in and said to me, because I was talking about marriage equality, which is going in that state, and he said to me that he's so surprised to hear that a man like me from Africa, I'm supporting what the Westerners took to our country. He was referring to homosexuality. And he said that he can never imagine how somebody can be able to support marriage equality, where a man can marry his and a woman her partner. And I was very glad because he used the word that he knew from the beginning that the traditional, the only marriage that he knows and what he understands is between a man and a woman. And I said to him, yes, that's the traditional you know, but there has been so many traditions. For example, in this country, people have the tradition of driving on the right. In Uganda, the tradition is driving on the left. But it's all driving. And if you ever drive on the right, the police will arrest you in Uganda. In America, they just let you go. So you see, it's not just about making a little translation. And then you understand the differences. I reminded him about this country and in South Africa, and even from the Bible point of view, that slaves were not allowed to marry. I wanted him to understand history. And I told him, but when people knew that slaves are now going to be allowed to marry, it was a really big issue, isn't it? But finally slaves married. It was even a big issue, my history tells me, somewhere around 1969, in this country, in other states, it was not allowed for white man to marry a black person. Is it so? Some states, it wasn't. But eventually it came to pass. Anybody seeing that is not an issue. So I told him, you are going to see other traditions coming. This is another tradition. Don't be surprised and don't. I told him not to run away, just be around and see. So because when people don't understand the background, they cannot be able to understand where we are going. Surprisingly, this is even funny. I've been traveling to people's houses. And I was able to see something very interesting. Did you know what I saw? I saw the cats and the dogs are living together nowadays. If we are able to teach animals to live together by themselves, why can't we teach ourselves the same? Amen. Amen. Thank you. It is something very simple. My mother tells me this. This is funny. She tells me when she was growing up in my country, women were not allowed to eat pork, women were not allowed to eat chicken, women were not allowed to eat eggs, even to eat grasshoppers. Those are the most delicious stuff in Uganda. No grasshopper, pork, chicken and eggs. Traditionally. But when she was growing up, she fed my sisters with the chicken, she fed them with pork and the grasshoppers. Today of those 4, she is able to eat 2. She eats grasshoppers and she eats eggs. She was unable to make a translation to eat the pork and the chicken. You get what I'm saying? So there has been a lot of barriers and issues that you and I may not be able to know, may not look at and say they are not ordinary, but when you give it a little time, you find and you come to understand that it is actually possible. So for those who are in for marriage equality, I tell you one thing, it is possible. Yes, it is possible. But the only time it's not going to be possible when you don't want it. If that's what you want, by the blessings and the wishes of this world, I tell you, it will come to pass where people will walk on this floor with no excuse. Don't give up the fight. Let us keep pushing. One day, this world entirely out of it, it will be free. Where all men and women, black or white, rich and poor, from the Caribbean, Africa, and everywhere will be able to speak one language of equality and peace. Amen. As I conclude, I want to thank you so much for being part. I know the Virginia Church, the Arlington Church has been on the forefront, particularly so much and strongly with the UN office of Bruce tells me a lot. So I think let us continue to work together. Let us continue to be as one, seeing that our desire in the 21st century, in this dispensation, is equality. It defeats my mind and makes me cry sometimes when I see issues happening and people just keep quiet. So, don't allow the younger people to be bullied in schools, especially the high schools here in America. Don't allow them to be denied who they are. Let me tell you one thing psychologically, what happens if somebody denies another. If you look at my sister over here, according to what I see from the clothes, and I think she's a woman. But if you ever come out and you deny and you tell her you are not a woman, do you know what you have done? You cause an inflicted pain, but which is inside. I am a black person here. If you ever tell me that Reverend Matthew, you are not black, you are green, that's denial. Because that's not what I am. You get my point? That pain is internal. You can never see it. It is inside. And that's what has translated to see young people, because they are denied to be what they are. They go and they commit suicide. Others resort to drugs. They get depressed and things like that. So, my message is one. Go over there. Speak to them with prophetic words, with the words of wisdom and words of knowledge. Bring new life into them, especially those who feel that they are downtrodden. It is your responsibility and it's my responsibility. Thank you so much for listening to me this morning, and may you be blessed.